Started this museum when?
May. We opened it. We got the building given to us.
Oh.
Okay.
And this is on Davis Street.
Right. This is 1200 Davis Street, and
Elmira.
right across the street from Mark Twain's grave.
Mark Twain's grave. Yes.
Yep. It's right on the hill, right across the street. In fact, if the leaves aren't on too heavy, you can see the grave from here, from the front porch of the museum.
Beautiful cemetery you have.
Isn't that beautiful?
Huge.
And the National Cemetery, you were up there
yes,
too, right?
Oh yeah. Well,
they do a beautiful job.
Yeah.
And that's been here, the National Cemetery, since the Civil War.
Amazing, yeah. I never heard of it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I got loads to tell you.
I just learned about it.
John Jones, this was all part of his farm at one time.
Even the cemetery?
Part of the land was part of the Jones farm at one time. Okay, here. His house was on College Avenue, which is the main street out behind us here. Mm-hmm. They moved it in 1959, I think it was, around the corner onto Woodlawn Avenue. And then we moved it from Woodlawn Avenue to its present site now on Davis Street. And I say we,
and you're
my
Mr.
father,
Wolfe. You're
me,
Mr. Wolfe?
and 2 other generations of my family.
So you're Dennis Wolfe?
I am.
Okay, I see
Senior.
Senior, I see the name here. Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Yep. And so what we did when the committee got together to save the John Jones house.
Yeah, that's nice.
They formed a group, got a not-for-profit status, applied for federal grants, all this other stuff, blah, 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 because John Jones came here in 1830 something or other as a slave from down south through the Underground Railroad.
So he was like a runaway slave?
He was a runaway slave, yes. And of course, he befriended Thomas Beecher. Okay, and Thomas Beecher, Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author, was his sister. They were all from here. Beecher was a big pastor here. He was big to do in Elmira. There's a huge statue of him downtown Elmira in the park.
Oh, I
Worcester
like to see
Park.
that.
Thomas K. Beecher, right.
You have lots of history here. That's very important.
Oh, it is. And we were talking about that earlier. I'm reading a book right now on the history of Chemung County and Elmira. And I'm reading, I read a lot of books, but I'm reading this one particular cover to cover because it's extremely interesting. Starts about 1800 and it runs through 1973, I think it is.
Do you have it here, the book?
No, it's at my home. I can't read here. I get too many interruptions. I have to have total privacy. But they came and my dad was a rigger, moved houses. Oh. And so they wanted this building moved from its former site to its present site now. So they hired us. And my dad, I wasn't working full time with my dad at the time, but he said, I need help, blah, 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 blah. Dad says, you need help, you do help, okay? So then I brought my 3 sons, and then the day we moved that building, we actually physically moved that building, my father had his great-grandson in his lap. My 2-year-old grandson rode in the backhoe with Grandpa, so there were 4 generations of Wolfes on that moving job.
Wow.
And so we moved that building over there. Well, that came, this building came to us in 2007. December 7th, 2007, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I was pretty down in the dumps. I got a phone call that night from a friend named Robert Edger. Bobby Edger's mother-in-law owned this building. It was a bar. It was called Harriet's Woodlawn Inn, or the Woodlawn Inn, okay? And he said, Daddy, that building you've been driving me nuts about for the last 5 or 6 years, because it sat empty for quite a while. And I said, yes. He said, Mary and I talked it over, and if you guys still want it, we're going to give it to you. So they gave us this building.
Nice.
And in 2008, January 3rd, 2008, we started gutting and renovating this building to make it the museum that you see today. It took me a little over a year, and we had the grand opening on the 2nd of May, 2009. And we've been open ever since. We've had close to 7,000 people through the doors since we've opened this museum. We've had them as far away as Australia and New Zealand, in England, all over the United States. We've had people in here from Texas, Oregon, Florida, you name it, they've been in here. And that's why we asked you to sign the guest book so we know, and that kind of keeps a record for us. We're not an accredited museum because
What's that?
accredited museum means that you get special favors, you know, and you pay the state to be an accredited museum. Well, we're not paying the state anything, okay? That's why we don't advertise at the rest areas on your interstate highways, because they charge you for that.
Oh, I'm sure.
You can't put in one of these little brochures without paying the state, okay? So, we don't do that. It's all word of mouth. That's the way we've always been, and we've done a pretty good job with that. So, everything in this museum is donated to one extent or another. I've had to purchase very little of the stuff. Everything, like I said, is mostly donated in here. There's 10,000 stories in here in the 10,000 Day War. And there's a story for everything that you see in this building.
Are you a veteran from Vietnam?
I am a Vietnam veteran. I am.
And in what branch?
I was in the United States Army. I served with the 1st Air Cavalry Division. I was in Vietnam from 67 to 68, and I am a survivor of the Tet Offensive.
Oh. And do you have any side effects, any health issues from being there?
Oh, I've got tons of them, just like most of us. I'm battling cancers all the time. I've got skin cancers all over my body from Agent Orange, and the chemical dioxin was, you know, used in Vietnam. It was used in Korea. It's been all over the world. We just did a seminar 2 weeks ago on WNY News. You can go to WNY Channel 36 News and go to their website and see that seminar that we did here. 4 of us veteran, a doctor, PA, who was a combat medic in Vietnam Special Forces. The doctor was a flight surgeon in the United States Navy, okay, combat surgeon. Bob Brill was a Navy veteran, and I was an Army helicopters, Vietnam. And we've all, and our children, and our grandchildren are having problems now down the road. And we're trying to emphasize that our government isn't doing enough to help.
Right. And still not doing enough.
Yeah, with these issues. And that's why we did the news thing, yes.
And where is that news company stationed?
WNY is in Horseheads.
Horseheads.
Yeah, it's one of the local Elmira stations, WENY.
WENY,
Yeah,
okay.
it's ABC and CBS here in Chemung County now. Yeah. Yeah. And Brandon Menard is the young man who was the reporter that came and did the video with us. And
I'd like to see it, yeah.
wanted to make sure that we...
Do you have anything like PTSD like you hear about?
I do have PTSD. I'm a 100% disabled veteran with post-traumatic stress. I have a number of other issues. I'm a diabetic. I'm you name it, and I've got it.
Are you diabetes 1 or 2?
Type 2.
Type 2.
Yep. There's never been a diabetic in my family history ever, anywhere. I'm the first one. And I know why I'm one, okay? So
And what about your dad who has cancer?
my dad had prostate cancer.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, was he exposed to anything also? Or
No, that's just a guy thing.
a guy
you know?
thing?
They say every guy is going to wind up with prostate cancer. So, but it's still can be attributed to foreign intervention like Agent Orange, the chemical. So the VA does recognize that.
They do?
Okay? So if they take your prostate out and they declare you cured, you're no longer disabled. So you get no compensation beyond that. But if you're dying of the cancer, they'll pay you up to the day you die. So.
Not much of a choice, huh?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. It's sad. And then you said the resident John Jones, he was a runaway slave.
Yes.
And he had a farm here. Do you know how many
Yes.
acres or anything?
Not right off the top of my head, but it was pretty sizable, probably 30, 40 acres here. I mean, his house was on College Avenue originally, and this was all farmland here at one time, and I don't know how much of it exactly was his property, but they should have that information at the John Jones Museum. But and again, I was very interested in it because he buried the roughly 3,000 Confederate soldiers that are buried here in Elmira. And that's how we got our national cemetery, was because of the Civil War, and because he knew that their mamas would want to know that their babies had a decent burial and where they were. Right. So he kept records.
Amazing, huh?
Yep. He buried and dug the graves, and I believe he was paid by the government for that. But still in all, he buried each one of those veterans that died, those Civil War veterans that died, and there's a bunch of Union soldiers that are buried there. There was a big train wreck that come up through near where you live, coming up from Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg, with prisoners on it, and the train collided with another train down there in Pennsylvania somewheres, and there was about 75 people that were killed in the train wreck. Union soldiers, Confederates, and they're all buried here in a mass grave, buried here at our national cemetery.
Yeah, horrible, huh?
Yeah.
So he did all that, and then I also heard he got the names of the dead people, the dead soldiers.
Right. He kept accurate records of each one of the soldiers that were buried and their hometowns.
In their hometowns. Right?
Yes.
Unreal.
Yes. And apparently his education, once he got here as a runaway slave, he befriended the Beechers, Thomas Beecher, and he was a sexton of one of the big churches here that Beecher, I believe, was a pastor at, and he taught him how to read and write. And so when it came time to do all the burials in that 1 year, because we only had the Civil War camp here roughly a year, the prisoner of war camp, so.
That's what I want to visit next. They told me where it is.
No, you should have just, two of the people that were big in it were just here.
Yeah, I just visited with, I met one of them in the National Cemetery, Mr. John
Travis. No.
He's with the Friends group. He told me Friends Association.
Right. John Trice.
Trice.
John Trice. He's the former district attorney for Sheboygan County. Yep.
Ah.
And he's been very big at our museum. He's a great supporter of all the history. He's a real history aficionado, if you will. And he's big in the Civil War prisoner of war camp cemetery. He's big in the National Cemetery. He's big in all of that. So, yeah, very nice man.
Very nice. I just did an interview with him in the cemetery.
Yeah.
And he told me where the camp is.
Yeah.
And then I could go visit it.
Yep. Right
So-
down Hoffman Street.
Hoffman and
Right straight to Hoffman Street when you get
Windsor, he told me.
Windsor.
Right.
And that's where the T is.
Yeah.
And you can't go any further because you run right into the prisoner of war camp and the waterboard pumping station. There's a big, huge building there that's the pumping station for the Elmira water system.
Yes, he told me that, so I'm really interested in seeing that besides John Jones' home. Mm-hmm. So John Jones did all that.
I don't know whether that John Jones home is open now.
I'm going to see, just in case.
I think you have to call.
Oh.
They're never open up there. I don't know.
I looked it up on my phone, but
Yeah.
I got the address. It's nearby.
It's right up the street.
Right
this
up the
way.
s- Is it on the same side as you?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
2 blocks.
2 blocks.
Two
good.
blocks right up here on the right.
Good, yeah, thank you, yeah.
Right on Davis Street, on the corner of Davis and Row.
Row.
Or Woodlawn. Davis and Woodlawn Avenue. Yeah.
And did somebody help him? I guess they must have had. He must have had help
Oh, I'm sure he had help.
to do 3,000. So we actually have bodies under those headstones.
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing,
Yeah.
because they're so close together.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we have some Nazi German soldiers buried in that cemetery.
Wow.
They died in the prisoner of war camp in Buffalo, and their bodies were brought here to be interned in this cemetery till they were repatriated, but they never got repatriated back to Germany. So I think there's 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 German soldiers still buried in our national cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I was born in Germany, and I immigrated with my parents when I was a toddler. And
Couldn't tell. You speak very, very good English.
because educated here.
Yeah.
So we were in camps from displaced persons. Have you heard of DPs?
Right, DPs.
So we were DPs, and we were in a camp outside of Hanover, Germany. And in that camp was a former Nazi soldier camp.
Prisoner of war camp.
No, actual, that's where they kept the soldiers. Their barracks.
It was a barracks for the German soldiers.
For the German soldiers. So
Yes.
they converted those barracks, that site, for DPs. And so we stayed in the barracks.
Yeah.
And we have pictures of that.
Oh, wow.
So when I asked my dad when I was much older, I said, what kind of soldiers were they? He would tell me soldiers. He says, well, what do you think? It's Nazis. That's all
Right.
there was, Nazis.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow,
I watched an interesting thing last night on the History Channel, or one of them channels, about the Nazis were the Aryan race, okay? Okay, and they promoted that big time. Well, they had a picture of this beautiful little baby girl on one of their Nazi propaganda magazines. Turned out she was Jewish.
I saw that.
Did you see that last night?
I didn't see it last night.
Oh my God, it was so incredible.
Yeah, that's ironic, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The
Well, they say-
photographer.
They even say Hitler could have been part Jewish.
Yeah.
They did a background on him,
Yeah.
that there was some Jewish in him.
Yeah. His great grandmother or
Yeah.
well, something. Yeah.
Right. What did the government tell you when they were dropping the dioxin in Vietnam and you were there?
It was weed killer.
They told
Basically,
you-
that's what they said. It was weed killer. They didn't tell us anything about Agent Orange, Agent Purple, Agent Blue. None of that stuff. Okay.
Did they tell you it was dangerous, possibly?
Nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, when I went to Vietnam, I was a multi-engine, fixed-wing aircraft mechanic, crew chief, okay? When I got to Vietnam, the Air Force had stolen our plane, okay? Our big fixed-wing, multi-engine aircraft. So my first sergeant said, I don't have a slot for you. What am I going to do with you? I told him he could send me home, but he didn't think that was funny. So he said, tomorrow morning you report here, you will become a helicopter crew chief, blah, 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 blah. So one of the first helicopters, after I went to an in-house school in Vietnam for 4 weeks, was an OH-13, which I probably made. It was a Bell helicopter, okay? And it was the old recip engine helicopters that were made by Schweitzer Aircraft right here in Big Flats, New York, which is, when I got drafted, was where I was working, okay? And we were building these helicopters for Bell Helicopter here in Elmira in Big Flats. That was the first helicopter that they put me on in Vietnam, and it had these big extra tanks on it and a spray bar. And I could never figure out till one of the guys that was working with me said, oh, that's what they spray the green line with. Now, the green line was our perimeter. All the way around our base. We had one of the largest bases in the Central Highlands in Vietnam.
And what was the name of the base?
On K. On K.
On K.
AHNKHE. On K. 2 words. Okay? And okay, whatever. I learned on that one. I went along, moved along. Next thing you know, I was on Huey's. Boom. The next thing you know, I was gone out on other missions. Okay? And that's the way it worked. Okay? You had a job to do. You did it. Whatever. Nobody ever told us about Agent Orange. The grunts, the infantry boys would come in, and once in a while you'd hear them talking about the jungle dripping. Okay? what the jungle was dripping was black sludge, because they would come in with the big Air Force C-123 providers with the spray systems on them and spray miles and miles and miles of dense jungle. And overnight, this dioxin chemical, Agent Orange, would melt the leaves and it would drip like black rain. Some of them actually called it black rain. Then that got everybody exposed, anybody that was on the ground to this stuff. I feel bad for the Vietnamese people to this day.
Right.
How many millions, if not billions, of gallons that we sprayed of this stuff over there? Nobody even talks about it. Nobody in the government. You ask anybody, they clam up in the government if you start talking to anybody about it. I don't care whether it's the VA or the Department of Defense or whoever. Everybody just clams up on it. I mean, it's deadly. But apparently, they've had this stuff since World War II. Apparently, the Germans invented this stuff. Okay? And then the American chemical companies, Monsanto, DuPont, and them, after the war, they took all this stuff from the Nazis, the Germans and stuff, and developed it further, researched it, whatever. They're the ones that put this stuff out here. Oh, it's okay to use, blah, 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 blah. It's like Roundup. How many years have you known about Roundup, and how many years have they told you, oh, Roundup's okay to use in the right way, blah, blah, it won't hurt you, blah, blah, there's no side effects. Now, it's a different story, isn't it?
Of course.
Okay? I do believe that through chemistry, we can live better, but also through chemistry, we can die faster.
Right.
Okay? It's all about the money. The bottom line is the bucks.
Right.
Okay? Who's ox getting gored making the most bucks? And they don't care. It's all about the money.
Yeah. Same story, right?
Name said.
Over and over again.
Amen. It's all about the buck. It's all about the God Almighty buck. They can deny it. They can say whatever they want.
And
They've been using this stuff in Korea since the Korean War. The DMZ. There isn't a thing that grows on the DMZ. Why? Because they have sprayed this stuff repeatedly. I understand, okay, what they need to do and why they needed to do it, but there were other ways.
right, but people are exposed to it. Human beings, and then it's genetically passed on, some of the stuff.
Exactly, and that's the problem. I have 3 sons, all of them with some type of severe disease or birth defect, okay, from birth. Now I've got 2 grandchildren with similar problems, okay, since birth. All right, we don't like to talk about it. My kids don't even want to hear about it. They don't want anything to do with the government, okay? But I have been trying to keep all this stuff in the forefront because I'm not the only one.
Right.
There are thousands of us out there with this problem. The kids from the Gulf War, they called it Gulf War syndrome or something.
Right.
Okay? It came from the toxic elements of all the crap from Saddam Hussein, burn up all the oil wells over there and all the chemicals that they destroyed that he had, and they burned it. And all this stuff went in the air. Okay? Can't make that up. It's there.
Right.
Okay? I'm not a scientist. Don't pretend to be a scientist. But I'm going to tell you right now that this stuff can kill you.
Do you have
I've
any?
seen it every day.
Have you written on any site about these things? Or had anybody interviewed you about some of this?
Oh yes, we've had a number of interviews about it. I've spoken a number of times to different organizations about this. Genetically, there's not a lot. We've got a lady now that we're in contact with who's doing research down, I believe she's in Florida, her company. I don't have her name right off the top of my head, but she is working with the Vietnam Veterans of America. Supposedly, we're going to give her a grant, a matching fund grant, for $50,000 or something like that to do research into the child and the genetics behind all this and what our children and our grandchildren are going through with it. I don't think there's ever been a real good study done on it anywhere that I'm aware of. Of course, I don't.
So the government's not doing a study, as far as you know.
No, I don't believe they are,
They don't want to know.
apparently. It's like another thing that troubles the Vietnam veteran that we've been trying to get out for a number of years now. There's a cancer that's caused by a parasite from the waters of Southeast Asia. Okay? It's called cholangiocarcinoma. Okay? It's cancer of the bile duct. And this parasite got in our bodies in the water of Vietnam. It's been living in us for 50 plus years. Some earlier developed this cancer. Some of us will develop it later if we don't get it recognized and treated. Okay? They can treat this parasite. They can kill this parasite that's in our livers. Okay? If they know it's there. But if they don't know it's there, and the VA has done nothing about promoting this as far as I'm concerned. We promote it here. Every Vietnam veteran that walks through the door here, we make sure that they get one of the brochures right here on cholangiocarcinoma. Okay? This is it right here. Okay? And we give this to them to make sure they take back to their doctors so they know. All right? And you can have that and take that with you. Okay?
Thank you.
But this has been around, and the government, Department of Defense, has known about this parasite since before World War II in Southeast Asia and in the tropical zones primarily.
Yeah, right.
Okay? You don't see it much in the United States. Once in a while, a case will show up in the tropics of the United States, lower Florida, or in the marshes of Louisiana somewhere. But it's not a big thing here, apparently. But it is in Southeast Asia. There's a lot of it. So when this parasite decides that it wants to multiply, if you will, it needs to get into your intestine so it can go out of your body. It goes from the liver to the bile duct where it gets trapped because it's too big to get through the bile duct. And then apparently it immediately causes this cholangiocarcinoma, this cancer. And it's a deadly cancer. It's a fast materializing cancer, and there's out of 118 cases that my friend, who is deceased now, did research on and developed. 118, there were one survivor out of 118 cases that she actually knew about.
And what about yourself? Anything with parasites since you were there?
I have not. I've been checked. I made them do two. They did a blood test on me, and they did an ultrasound on my liver. Okay, and apparently I'm one of the fortunate ones. I do not have this parasite. Okay, but my family is aware that if all of a sudden I develop bile duct cancer, that's what they're going to start looking for. Not that it's going to make any difference because I'm going to be dead. The only difference it's going to make is if I get put on the rolls of the documented cases, like my friend Pete Harrison was. Pete was the very first one. His wife was the one that discovered this. When Pete died of liver cancer, okay, and they could never figure out why, she had an autopsy done on him that found the real cause of the cancer, and it was this cholangiocarcinoma, or whatever they call it, okay? Started in his bile duct. And that, okay, was how we got to be made aware of it. She did all of this research. She was on the computer. She did all of this research. And she went after the VA to get the disability and the benefit for her husband's death from this disease, okay? And so from that, what we have done now is we promote this to every Vietnam vet that comes through that door. We've talked about it, we've talked publicly about it, but there's still nothing in the VA system. They have mentioned it a couple times, but there's still nothing saying that every Vietnam vet that comes through that door that's never been checked for it, the VA's going to check you. You just don't do it.
And then as far as birth defects with your family, what kind of birth defects, or would you say?
Well, one of the big ones, that I'm familiar with is spinal bifida. Okay, now spinal bifida is not in its entirety a disease caused because of the chemical dioxin or Agent Orange, but because research has shown that it does have a bearing genetically on spinal bifida cases in children of our offspring. There is a connection. So the VA did recognize that. Unfortunately, there was a time window on that. It has now been taken off the presumptive list. Okay? The list that the VA puts out, and you can go online and find it, okay? Agent Orange and related, there's like 10 or 12 specific things, like this colorectal. It's a very severe acne problem, okay? That they say you should have had within a year after you got sprayed by the dioxin. Well, who knew that? They didn't tell us about anything. 51 years ago, I was in Vietnam. Not once did I hear anything about a chemical. Not once. So, as my children or my grandchildren are developing these problems, why do they have them now? Why is that out there? And why isn't the VA checking this out to find out if that came genetically from me? I mean, they got to be able to do that somewhere. I would think with all the brains that we got to develop this crap.
Right. Yeah, they probably just don't want to know. It's too
It's
messy.
just amazing. You know, I mean, those of us that served, we did our job. Okay? We went and we put our uniform on and we served our country. And the Veterans Affairs from the Civil War on, when Lincoln said that he was going to take care of all the troops and their families and their born children, that's what the VA and the United States government was going to be responsible for. That's why a lot of them volunteered, because they knew if they died, they were going to get a decent funeral and their families wouldn't have to pay. But if they also got sick or hurt or wounded or disabled, that the government was going to help them along. Okay?
So has the government been living up to their promise?
You tell me. Okay? To some extent, I would say yes. It's become better. I'm ecstatic about President Trump signing the new Missions Act, which is covering now the outpatient care, was called the Choice Program before. Okay? And they reinstituted this program because it worked. Because a lot of our vets were dying because they couldn't get the medical care at the proper time through the VA. So they enveloped the Choice Program. That was the original one. They came along and they said, okay, if you apply ahead of time and we can't get you in within 30 days to this appointment, or we do not have a specialist to cover your problem, we will pay for and send you to a private facility. That was the Choice Program. It's gotten a little better. They've cleaned it up a little bit under this new Missions Act and stuff. It's there was a lot of problems with it originally because guys would go to the hospital. They tell you, if you're having a problem, go to the emergency room immediately. Don't try to drive to Bath and go to the urgent care, or don't wait till Monday to your doctor's appointment. Go to the emergency room, and then they don't pay for it. The vets get there, then the hospital doesn't know how to bill right because they don't know how to bill right when it comes to the government. Okay, I've seen so many rejected claims for guys. I had a gentleman in here the other day. He showed me at least 20 letters related to his most difficulties now from the local hospitals that were denied by the VA because they didn't submit the form right, or they didn't put the right information down on the form. So the VA, the vet's in the middle.
Right.
I've known veterans that have lost their properties, their houses, their cars, everything. Because the hospital don't care. They're coming after your money. They want their money. Okay? They don't care. So they're not going after the VA. They're going after the veteran. And that upsets me. That really upsets me a lot. Okay? So now under this new Mission Act, we're supposed to be more in tune. Okay? The hospitals are supposed to be more familiarized with the billing process. Okay?
I hope so.
Whether that's happening or not, I'm not so sure. Okay? But at least somebody recognized it and they're trying to make an effort that way. So, yes.
Well, it sounds like a lot of people were expendable, you know.
Yeah, what they call us fodder. We were cannon fodder. That's always the way it's been. I remember my grandfather's a World War I veteran. Okay, they were cannon fodder. That's what they called them. That man was so disabled in his mind and his soul and his body, but he never once got any help from the VA until he died. And then because he was a World War I veteran and because he had been gassed in France and Germany during the war, and he got last minute VA care to help him die. Okay? But before that, there was nothing for these guys. Okay? They come back, their PTSD was shell shock. I remember standing at the Veterans Memorial as a young grandson with my grandfather, squeezing my hand so hard when the rifles went off, and the tears running down his cheeks every time. And he would stand in the back. He would never stand up front. He was always in the back, and he always had tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. It's taken me years and years and years not to do it, and I still do it. Took me years.
Still do what? Tears in the eyes?
Oh, absolutely. Last night, I couldn't watch on PBS. They have the national program at the mall where they do the honoring, and Colin Powell was on there last night. They were talking. They had Vietnam veterans. They had World War II vet. They still had a number of World War II vets there, and Korean War veterans. Okay, the guys from Korea we've forgotten a lot about in this country. I don't, but this country has. Okay. Did you ever go off to war? You never did you? Well, when you went off to war, it didn't matter what they called it back home. If somebody's shooting at you, it's a war. Trust me. People die in wars. Okay? To call it a conflict or whatever, and then to come home after serving, that we did, and have World War II vets tell me to my face that I wasn't in a real war, that I don't belong in that VFW, or I didn't deserve to belong to that VFW because I wasn't in a real war. Well, guess what? They found out what a real war was at that time. I'd probably do it today. Somebody said that to me. I'm 73 years old, but I don't care. You can't tell me I was not in a real war. You call it whatever you want to. Conflict, intervention, whatever. Political crap. But when somebody's shooting at you, I don't care what they call it. It's a war. Get out of the line. It's a war.
Well.
Amen.
Amen.